Mark Sims. Reverend Sims, I don't have an address on the card. Is your church here in Fort Lauderdale?
It's in Coral Springs, but I am here representing the Episcopal Diocese of Southeast Florida, which encompasses all of Broward County.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, thank you, and Commissioners, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak here this evening. I would just ask you, please, do not criminalize being homeless and hungry in the city of Fort Lauderdale. It is making it almost impossible for us to feed the individuals who are not able to be in a shelter. The shelters themselves are overflowing. The wait list to get into a shelter is, in some cases, exceeds over 100 people. One of the instances that really struck me 2 weeks ago was a lady who actually works here in the city for one of the city agencies. Her two children were with her when she got off of work. She came by Stranahan Park. She knew that she could pick up a bag with a peanut butter and jelly sandwich in it and some fruit and some vegetables and some water and be able to go home, get on a bus, and take care of her kids and go back to work the next day. The ordinance that we're looking at would make that illegal. There are so many people, so many small organizations, individuals, churches, small groups that make themselves available to just be there and hand out sometimes 20, sometimes 40, sometimes 70 meals. They clean up, they're out of there. They do their very best to try to help the citizens that are falling through the cracks. Not everyone needs to be in a homeless shelter. Some people are working. There are the working poor that we're trying to take care of. But there are other individuals who are simply not able to get into a shelter. So I'm asking, please do not criminalize homelessness. This is a problem that you need to help solve with me, that I need to help solve, not the police department. Please do not criminalize being homeless and hungry on the streets of Fort Lauderdale. Thank you.
Reverend, let me ask you a question. Just how many Episcopalian churches are there in the city limits?
I think there are 3.
And how many of them serve food at those locations?
We serve at St. Christopher's. We hand out food at the Church of the Intercession facility that is...
I know, but I mean at the Episcopalian, because it would be legal at all 3 to do this.
And we do that.
All 3?
We serve at every single one of them. Every single one of them. And we have 2 shelters that are also here in Broward County.
No, and I've had a discussion with a lot of different Episcopalians who told me they're serving at all 3, and they can serve in compliance with the ordinance.
And we do. We serve at those places.
So how is this an issue if you can serve at all 3 locations?
Because we still cannot meet every single person that is on the streets of the city of Fort Lauderdale. I mean, we have churches that are located on Tarpon Bend. We have them that are located up off of 5th Avenue. Right. And the Church of the Intercession that is on the verge of Wilton Manors, and we hand out food there. We're doing the very best that we can. We're handing out food. We are serving meals. We're serving hot meals. Not a single person has ever complained about the quality of the food that we've served.
But that's why it's legal to serve there. I mean,
we do.
So I guess, are you guys part of Hope South Florida?
St. Christopher's is, yes.
And the other 2 churches are outside of the Hope Network?
They are outside of the Hope South Florida Network, yes.
There's a lot of churches that are outside of the Hope South Florida Network.
Yes, but they are part of other networks that also feed places like St. Lawrence Chapel and the Jubilee Center in Hollywood.
Right, so not all the churches that feed are in the Hope South Florida Network. There are
That's
probably
correct.
dozens outside.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Any other questions?
What you're in Coral Springs?
My church is in Coral Springs. The church
What do
that
you all do out there with your homeless?
What we do is we provide food and bags for people who are on the go out in Coral Springs. We do not have as many homeless people out in Coral Springs because the facilities are not there. The transportation facilities aren't there. The centers where they need to be able to come and get resources in order to get identification, to be able to get into the homeless shelters are not all out in Coral Springs. They're here in Fort Lauderdale. People come to Fort Lauderdale because this is the main city.
So
it's the same thing that would happen if you were in Miami. They go into the city of Miami because that is the downtown, and that's where the services are.
So is your congregation have a a feeding ministry in
Absolutely.
itself?
We
And
have
so where do they go to feed?
We come here to Stranahan. We come over and feed over by provide food at Church of the Intercession. We have helped provide food in our own parish at All Saints Episcopal Church and also at St. Christopher's.
And do you all have any form of transportation that you provide?
We do not.
Transport?
No, we do not.
'Cause
Although at the Jubilee Center that is out in Pompano, out by the jails, we do have a van, and we pick people up, we bring them, we feed them, and then we will drop them back off wherever they need to be dropped off.
And wouldn't you consider that to be a better dynamic than just going to Stranahan Park and handing out food?
It's not that it's better, it is one of the ways to help people. It's not the only way to help people.
And I'm sure you are a man of belief of a whole ministry is better than a half ministry. So, for instance, just handing somebody a fish isn't as good as teaching them how to fish, right?
My guess would be if we stood out there and started fishing on New River, that you'd have something to say about that also.
Yeah. All right. Well, what I'd like to hear from you is you want to be part of the solution, and
I do.
if you're in Coral Springs and you want to feed in Fort Lauderdale, then I think you need to be part of the Fort Lauderdale solution. Would you agree with that?
We are part of the Fort Lauderdale solution.
Okay. Well, but I'm not here.
But the corporate entities that Fort Lauderdale funds, when they get their money from the federal government handed down to Hope South Florida and some of the other organizations, we are not always part of every single one of those organizations. We do not feel that those are the only places that people can be fed and nurtured and cared for. We try to meet them where they are. I mean, when they get let out of jail at 4 o'clock in the morning, they have no place to go. They're not going to they can't get in the shelter at the Salvation Army. They can't get into the hack. They can't get into any of the other shelters. So when they're let out at 4 o'clock in the morning by the Broward County Jail, they have no place to go except for downtown, and they go where they feel they're safe. Some of them go to Stranahan because they know that area. Some of them go over to the bus station. Some of them are scared to go over to the bus station. But it's the only public restroom that they've got, so that's where they wind up.
So in terms of a comprehensive solution to that dynamic, okay, do you have any suggestions?
Yes, I do. I think that there is not one answer. There is not one big comprehensive solution that you can provide.
Okay.
You are going to have people that are not going to fit in the little box that we're trying to put them in. They simply are not going to be able to do that. And as a Christian, frankly, and as a priest, it's my call to care for them where they are. Some of them are going to be sleeping under a bridge, and there's nothing that you and I are going to be able to do about that. But they are still human beings that deserve to be loved and cared for and given a meal. And until they are in a position where they can get into a homeless shelter or get in line to be able to be accepted into a homeless shelter, they still need to be cared and fed. Yeah. I'm not going to abandon that
churches don't offer feedings that you're aware of?
I think every single Episcopal church that I know of in the diocese is part of some sort of feeding program.
And they do them on their premises?
Not all of them on their premises. No.
Any other questions?
I mean, we try to feed people where they are.
I appreciate your very respectful approach.
I mean, we do what we can in the shelters that we have. We do what we can in the churches that we have. But all the people aren't in Coral Springs. They're not all in Margate or Tamarack or any place else. They're here the same reason all of us are here, because it's Fort Lauderdale. This is where they come. This is where we come. I love Fort Lauderdale. I'm a fifth-generation Floridian. I live in South Florida because I want to live in South Florida. And Fort Lauderdale is the center of all of that, just like Miami is the center of the facilities down in Dade County. And West Palm Beach is going to be the center of all that action in Palm Beach County. There are some responsibilities. There are some responsibilities that are going to come with being the main city in the county.
Does your congregation provide any housing for homeless at all?
Our church does not. Our parish does not. I know that they do provide housing and a place for people to stay over at All Saints Episcopal Church.
Okay.
All Saints is the one down on.
It's on Target Drive on the right.
And would, in your opinion, does part of this comprehensive solution include the housing?
Yes. We want to be able to provide housing. We want everyone to have a house that wants to be able to live in a house.
All right. Well, in terms of the rapid rehousing program, you're familiar with that and what's being done so far?
So,
yes.
Look,
yeah.
Okay.
You've always been respectful, so I ask you to stay respectful.
It's okay.
Not you.
No.
All right. So I guess our suggestion, my suggestion might be, one of the solutions is obviously the partnerships that we're trying to do as a city, and it sounds like you're already doing some degree as a denomination, but I've seen from my position that there is a lot of community support to put together a coalition that has already generated and germinated, and specifically Hope South Florida is trying to move in that direction. And so I would encourage you to call them, find out what they're doing, see how you can partner with them, because again, we're all looking for the same comprehensive solution.
And I don't disagree with that. And I think one of the things that that has happened over the past few months is it has given us the opportunity to partner with other churches and other denominations that perhaps we did not, work with before. Pastor Frank Pontillo, for example, or Pastor Craig Watts. We now work with both of them. We're working with Peanut Butter and Jelly Ministries. We're doing the best that we can to reach out.
I would leave you with this, because I know you're a man of faith and you understand the concept of walking in another man's shoes. So I would just leave you with this dynamic. We are trying to address this in a comprehensive way. And more importantly, because we are the capital city for the county, because we are the downtown, we do have the largest homeless population.
Yes, you do, and you always will.
So that aspect of it, I think, needs to be taken into consideration in whatever ministry you're trying to do that will partner with an organization that's working on downtown would be helpful.
Well, I will continue to do that. We have been doing that. We'll continue to do that. I guess the basis of what I'm really asking you to do is please don't hog tie us to the point where we can't serve some of the people who simply are not going to be in a shelter. Don't criminalize the activity of handing out a sandwich to somebody.
About shelter. We recognize the issues with shelters. All we're saying, if every church can now do a feeding, there are more churches than parks. There are more churches in the city than parks. When you actually analyze this ordinance and you look at what we did, there are more opportunities for feeding in a better setting, a safer setting, a more secure setting under this ordinance. Because under the old zoning laws, not every church could feed. And what has really been troublesome is that there are a few, and I will say this, you have been, very respectful, very intelligent on this issue. There are a lot of people that want to distort this issue. And there are even people of faith that want to distort this issue and try to say, oh, they're banning feeding. We know that's not true. You know that's not true. The issue is we want to feed through a network that's safe, that's secure, it's cleaner, it's healthier. So all I'm trying to say here is if every church did what your church is doing, this issue would be a lot easier to handle.
Excuse me, sir. The problem is not every church has a ministry to feed the homeless.
Well, I'm going to ask
so
you a
to the extent that there are churches that do that, they are blessed. But to the extent that there are other churches, which are in the majority, who do not participate in the feeding program, I know it's true. My own church doesn't do it. The reality is that there are other organizations, nonprofit, who are not churches, want to participate in a feeding program, and we're denying them that opportunity.
They feed at their locations, Dean. Nobody's denying them.
They're not zoned. The only churches are.
This is the stuff we're doing to make sure the zoning's right.
Only for churches.